in the icy depths of the Gulf of Alaska.
I thought he was going in the water right there.
The Coast Guard confronts gale force winds and massive waves.
I wouldn't have wanted to be on that boat, and you could tell they didn't want to be there either.
On Barometer Mountain, a helicopter braves rough terrain to rescue an injured hiker.
Flying in the mountains is not something the Coast Guard typically does. That's unfamiliar territory.
And through a murky storm, a crew struggles to breathe life into a dying man.
We had a patient who is not breathing, and he is sure to die if nothing happens.
The vast Alaskan wilderness, a place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, 350 highly trained men and women risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
AMT3, Brandon Kerr, age 60 flight mechanic. So it was about 10:15, we were settling down for the night, getting ready to go to bed, and the phone rang, and it was a search and rescue case for a vessel that had lost steering. We knew the general position and that they were still making way, but how many persons might be on board the vessel was unknown.
All right, on 3, 1, 2, 3. Blade gas power is off, system stats, everything's in the green.
We didn't have a good report on on-scene weather. From my understanding, I don't believe the captain had real good communications. He gave out a mayday over channel 16, and then didn't have good communications after that, so not a whole lot of information was able to get passed. We were told it was over an hour there. It was in the vicinity of Kodiak Island.
All right, we're gonna come around the south tip of the island, and then we're gonna be to their position. They said they were underway and headed towards the beach, right? Yeah. Well, they're drifting towards the beach. Yeah.
Lieutenant Jason Evans, AUF Weapons Officer, age 60 pilot at Air Station Kodiak. The closer we got towards Kodiak Island, the worse the weather got. The winds really picked up. It was raining, about 2 miles viz and maybe 300-foot ceilings. So we're approaching the south tip of Kodiak Island. We're making attempts to contact the vessel on channel 16.
St. Joseph, 6044, currently en route to your position. Can you say how fast you guys are drifting?
Negative, we are not drifting. We're actually just running with our bow thruster, and the rudder must be locked, so we're just fighting off these waves. Hold on.
They probably got their bow into the seas and they're just freaking taking a beat. They're just getting whooped. Hey, Cap, what do you estimate the sea state to be? About 7-footers, 8-footers?
Oh, no, I think they're bigger than that. Definite 20s in there.
20-footers.
Oh,
roger. And you guys have survival suits available?
Absolutely we do, and we got a new life raft.
We got on scene with the coordinates we were given. His rudder was stuck in a fixed position, and so he was making something like 3 knots into a heavy current and into 20-foot seas. With occasional 30, every now and then he would take a really hard roll and his rigging would get dipped into the seas.
You see that? I thought he was going in the water right there.
And he was in the trough for the most part, heading parallel with the waves.
We cannot get our steering going. We don't know what to do. I'm just trying to keep us from being turned over right now. That's all I got. I'm sure looking for suggestions. I'm sliding side to side in the wheelhouse here.
It's ridiculous. It gets darker, and the seas are getting worse.
The captain of the vessel, you could tell over the radio, is pretty frantic and pretty exhausted and just getting beat up in 20-foot seas. And he was asking us for help with suggestions, what he could do with his vessel. We all kind of knew the situation was pretty bad, it was deteriorating. So we were drawing closer and closer to realizing that we were going to have to hoist the gentleman off the boat.
I don't know how long we're going to wait. What if they tip over? It's a really bad situation, right?
Yeah, it's no bueno. Captain 6044, you let us know as soon as you are feeling really
uncomfortable, and we'll start talking about getting you guys off the boat. Yeah, roger that. Yeah, I can imagine no scenario where it's a good idea to leave a boat. But these beaches don't look too hospitable either.
Weather continued to deteriorate. Ceilings were coming down. Wave action was looking pretty good, and the boat was definitely rocking side to side pretty good. With the vessel swinging to and fro, the tall mast and the rigging swinging both sides, and all their gear on deck to include a VW Bug, we were very concerned.
Mr. Wright? Sure. I was wondering if we could just get some eyes on this boat and check out the rigging, you know, if it's even a viable hoisting platform.
It's going to be tough. I mean,
yeah.
It looks like, you know, it's got the two outriggers, and then it's got a big one that's just going down the back of the deck.
Yeah, it's got that big boom right down the center, doesn't it?
Yeah, and with these waves, it's going to be pretty tough.
Right.
St. Joseph 6044, on your current course and speed, we estimate the vessel is going to beach in about 12 miles.
We're really concerned that they were going to run ashore, damage the hull of the vessel, and it was going to sink. Extremely life-threatening situation.
It looks like we're going to have to extract you guys from the vessel.
So after talking to the captain, we made the decision to do a direct deployment of the rescue swimmer to the port stern.
Does everybody feel comfortable with that? Roger, I'm bringing the swimmer to the door and get my trail line ready.
Everybody knew right when we pulled into a hover and we're looking at the boat, we all knew that it would be very challenging to do a hoist to that boat. The way they were pitching and, you know, rocking and rolling, I wouldn't have wanted to be on that boat. And you could tell they didn't want to be there either.
And rescue is complete, ready for direct deployment. The rescue swimmer at port stern of St. Joseph. Roger, check swimmer. Roger, check and swimmer.
You know, we got a boat underway. We're gonna lower down a trail line on deck, right? Attach it to the hook. They have crew members that can tend it. They can kind of reel me in.
Boat check complete, swimmer's going down. Swimmer's halfway down.
Got over the boat, he was halfway down, vessel took a really hard roll, back and forth.
Look at this boat, man, freaking rocking and rolling.
The mast came really close to just knocking me off into oblivion. I'm on the hook like, this sucks. This is bad. I hope, you know, they can get me down there.
And vessel's rolling hard, boarding the hoist. Swimmer's on his way up.
We ain't gonna need to come up with a plan B. I've never been here in my life. You got any plan Bs for me?
We decided to do Plan B. And Plan B was to have each crew member, one at a time, jump into the ocean.
St. Joseph is 6044 on 16. We want your guys to slowly, safely work their way back to the port stern, and at that point, jump off, and we'll move in with our swimmer and recover these guys one at a time. I'll copy on that.
Roger that. I just appreciate your voice. We were calling for a long time, and no one was there.
So we finally settled on one guy makes his way out to the stern. One guy's gonna keep eyes on him, right, from the pilot house. And then the guy that makes his way out to the stern and jumps overboard into the Gulf of Alaska at 1:30 in the morning.
All right, looks like the first crew member is working his way to the port stern. Looks like he's having a hard time making it across the deck without falling.
So we moved in position, and we were uncomfortable with having the swimmer disconnect from the cable because of the sea state. We had 20 to 30 foot seas. It's nighttime now. We're talking 1 o'clock in the morning. It's raining. I can't see the horizon.
I bring Rob outside the door. We communicate over the radio for the fisherman or survivor to jump into the water.
You guys are doing great. I know it looks really, really rough down there.
Yeah, it really is. I'm guessing 20s, occasional 30s. That's the ones that scare us.
All right, looks like the first crew member is working his way to the port stern.
So we got a call approximately 9:30, 9:45. I said it's a fishing vessel without steering, and it's located on the northeast side of Kodiak Island. So we discussed it as a crew and decided the best course of action would be to have them jump in the water one at a time in their survival suits, and we pick them up.
You guys are doing great. I know it looks really, really rough down there.
Yeah, it really is. I'm guessing 20s, occasional 30s. That's the ones that scare us.
direct deployment, I stay on the cable and use what we call the quick strap, which is basically just a sling with a friction keeper on it. You got it over your arm, grab the survivor's arm. Hopefully they're like, hey, hey, hey. They reach out. You can grab that arm, take it off my shoulder, over their head, under the other arm, boom, ready to go. Quick. Can be done in, 10 seconds.
Swimmer and survivor just outside cabin door. Bringing swimmer and survivor inside the cabin.
All 5 hoists went the same way. It was a direct deployment of the swimmer. We moved off, so we didn't beat them up with rotor wash. Each hoist took approximately 5 minutes.
Load check complete, swimmer's going down. Swimmer's going down.
We lower the swimmer to the survivor. It could take upwards of a minute to 2 minutes for the swimmer to rig the survivor with the quick strap, and then us to safely move back in over them and get plumb and get into a good enough position to pull them up out of the water, get them into the cabin, and then Rob would be back in the door ready to go for the next one.
Bringing them up just outside the cabin door. Bringing the swimmer and survivor inside the cabin. And hoist complete. Roger, great work.
It was really a good feeling to know that we had them all in the helo, all 5. And luckily we had, great pilots and great crew, great flight mechanic. They flew us back, in pretty gnarly, nasty, conditions for flying, and some of the worst. Back to the hospital, got us back there safe.
We were able to get all 5 people off the boat successfully without incident. We felt great. Everybody felt really accomplished. It was a great night to go out in really bad weather conditions and bad sea state and be able to save 5 people.
A couple duty days later, we went out on a flight over the fishing vessel, had washed up on shore. We got out there in the same crew that we hoisted. We're out there making salvage efforts.
Oh, save your lives? Yeah, we're same crew. Yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. No problem. It's our pleasure.
I don't think after seeing what the boat went through on the beach.
It's a really good feeling to be able to talk to the gentleman that you had hoisted a couple days ago. You see that they're all right, they're back on their feet, they're immediately taking care of business, trying to see what they can do with their boat.
You guys did great, man. That boat was like,
Was it as bad to see?
It was nasty. That mast was like this, and I was like, man, that's a great job.
I think it's great.
The captain expressed his sincere gratitude that we were able to be there, and he felt that if we hadn't been there that night, that the boat would have rolled over, and who knows what would happen to him and his crew.
Jeff Shock, and I'm a tenderman. We were driving along, everything was going fine. We're enjoying the brand new boat we spent so much time building, and seas were a bit rough, and all of a sudden we had no steering, an alarm went off. The reality was this is a dire situation. Wave after wave, there's seconds in between, and it was traumatic. It's abandon ship or give up life, but we're all here, and I guess it's a win.
Do you have a position? They're on top of the mountain. The fire department guy that is up has requested that you pick up the individual, her mom, and the 2 firefighters.
I got a couple phone calls saying that there was a 15-year-old girl who had a possible broken leg, broken ankle on top of Barometer.
Our barometer is mounted just behind the air station, approximately 2,500 feet tall. The Coast Guard Fire Department sent 2 of their personnel to evaluate the patient and determine what the best course of action was.
Go ahead.
Coast Guard understand. Granted.
I don't know their condition, other than that she could not walk and that the fire department did want us to go up there and pick her up. Barometer isn't very steep, can slip and slide quite a bit, and it'd be very, very tough to carry somebody down there, even for 2, strong individuals.
Initial impression is the approach from the west over the top of the ridge line, staying on the good side of the mountain. All right. a 180 here and take a look at the area.
Sounds good, brother. We're not showing any wind right now, but...
Do you see her? Is she at the top of the trail right there?
It looks like everybody's at the top there. We may want them to move a little bit.
Flying in the mountains is not something the Coast Guard typically does on a daily basis. We're comfortable over the water, we're comfortable around ships, but into the mountains, that's unfamiliar territory.
We should just be over it.
The performance of the aircraft decreases as you climb up in altitude.
It's a tricky landing zone.
We're asking ourselves, do we have a place to land? Do we have enough power to pull into a hover?
There's a flat spot just on the west side of them. Let me know when the wheels touch, one at a time. Got 30 knots of wind coming in from offshore.
We are responding to a patient in respiratory distress. He is critically ill.
Oh, no one else is flying right now. They're crazy as we are.
All right.
Got a call if there's a hiker on Mount Barometer that had injured themselves on the climb, possibly broken a leg.
180 here and take a look at the area.
Sounds good, brother.
The Coast Guard Fire Department here at Air Station Kodiak sent 2 of their folks up Mount Barometer to evaluate the patient.
Do you see her? Is she at the top of the trail right there?
It looks like everybody's at the top.
Once we're at the summit of Barometer Mountain, we're assessing the wind condition. The laps around the top of Barometer is giving the entire crew a real good idea of the hazards up there. We're asking ourselves, do we have a place to land? Do we have enough power to pull into a hover? And what are the hazards, not only for us, but also for the folks on the ground?
There's a flat spot just on the west side of them.
I concur, I saw that too.
In any kind of mountain flying or mountain rescue situation, the performance of the aircraft generally decreases as you climb up in altitude. The blades of the helicopter, they like dense air, and as you climb up that air, density decreases to the point that you might not have enough power to maintain a stable hover.
Josh? Yes, sir. There's a mound on the north side. Looks to probably put the tail wheel on that mound.
Roger that.
It's still pretty tight.
Took a lot of views, looked at it from every angle that we could and decided that we could in fact land. We picked a spot that looked like it was fairly flat and didn't have anything sticking up that would be a hazard.
It's a tricky landing zone. Just looking at the exact spot, there's a rock outcropping and then there's a high point that I can line the wheels up on. You guys ready for approach? Ready for approach.
After we had decided that we were going to land and that we had an area that we thought looked good, we came in real slow. I was laying on my belly with my head out the door, trying to see as much as I could, and counting the aircraft in just nice and slow.
Directly over it now, clear down.
Roger. Coming down. Let me know when the wheels touch, one at a time.
Clear down. Actually, easy back. 4.
As the wheels got real close to the ground, it was real obvious where the sweet spot was.
That's good, we're on deck. And you're clear to come all the way down, sir.
We got all wheels on?
All the wheels are on. We're in a good spot. Clear to come down.
Roger that. I'm going to take the backboard with me, and then if I don't need it, I can just bring it back in. Roger.
It wasn't as bad as what we were initially called out for. She hadn't broken her leg. She had just kind of sprained her ankle. But it was bad enough to where they weren't going to be able to hike her down.
We're going to help you get to the plane. I need you to kind of keep your head down and maybe put one hand over your eyes, okay? There's a lot of wind. I don't want you to get hit in the face.
It's her ankle, so I don't think it's going to be necessary for us.
Put her on the backboard. Over. Good copy and all. How soon are you guys ready for us to come back in for pickup? We're ready to go right now.
She looked a little scared. I kind of had a feeling that the girl had never been on a helicopter before.
How you doing? I'm going to help you get to the helicopter. Just keep your hand over your eyes, keep your head down, and I'll lead you, okay?
Thank you for coming.
We can just get staged like right on the outside of the rotor arc there, and then we'll go in one at a time.
Sounds good.
We came back in, picked up the rescue swimmer of the patient's mother, as well as the 2 firefighters that had hiked up Barometer.
Position, just easy back. Easy back.
It was a test of some of the skills that I've only slightly mastered at this point. Rough area landing is something that we do quite often, but not at altitude like that, not where your landing area is so particular. If we had been 2 feet to the right or 2 feet to the left, it wouldn't have been possible to pull off. weather was terrific for it. I didn't freeze, so that was nice. And I got to wear the dry suit for the first time on a SAR case. That's pretty cool.
Good job.
Once we landed, I was able to finally meet the two firefighters who went up the hill. I've got a lot of respect for what the Coast Guard Fire Department's doing here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Good night, guys. Well, that was fun.
Great experience for everybody involved. I think we all enjoyed doing something a little bit different than a normal water rescue.
We got a 29-year-old female who's apparently suffering from stroke-like symptoms.
She's just having some seizure activity right now.
Roger. I've had seizure cases before, but the look of fear on her face when she was having the seizure is definitely going to stick in my mind.
Aviation electronics technician, Joshua Harris. We're out at the Stony Creek Range here in Kodiak. We're slated for 2 range days a week between weather, maintenance of the aircraft, and deployments that are drawing us in different directions. We don't usually get to make as many range days as we'd like to, so it's nice to have days like this.
Okay, let's go weapon safety rules, Josh. Give me all 4 of them, please.
Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Always maintain proper muzzle control. Keep finger off the trigger until on target and ready to shoot, and know your target and what is beyond it.
We're ready to go back here whenever you are. My name's Gunner's Mate 3rd Class Max Richardson. I'll be behind the berm in what we call the butts, back there at the end of the range. I'm protected by a concrete wall, so I'm not getting shot at, but I'm holding the target on a stick, basically, and moving back and forth, you know, to make a moving target.
Shooter's ready. Line is ready. Line is hot.
Shooter ready.
Commence fire. How'd we do on that one?
You got 4 hits.
Okay, get ready for
4 movers, 2 left, 2 rights.
We also shot movers.
All right, shooter, clear and safe your weapon.
Okay, I got 4 hits.
After that, we went into positionals. The positions are standing 10 shots from 100 yards. Sitting 10 shots from 200 yards.
Commence fire.
And then 10 shots from 300 yards in 60 seconds from the prone position. And then 20 shots within 20 minutes from 300 yards from the prone position. The toughest part for a static range days is probably the stress fires.
Shooter ready?
Shooter ready.
And begin.
The stress fires we do to simulate, obviously, the adrenaline and moving around in the cabin and the adrenaline rush of the mission itself. So we try to simulate that by doing things like push-ups, sprints, and just getting you out of your comfort zone.
Shooter, stand by. 3, 2, 1.
Being able to do this mission on Kodiak is especially cool. You know, right now I'm surrounded by mountains. I've got eagles flying behind me and in front of me. So being able to do this mission anywhere is awesome. Being able to do it on Kodiak is just a little bit cooler.
Commander, we've got a 28 to 29-year-old female, possibly a stroke victim, off of a Fognak Island. If you look where Little Raspberry is, this place is actually off some small, tiny Russian village called Waska Nareska Bay. We got a 28 to 29-year-old female who's apparently suffering from stroke-like symptoms. So they requested us to launch a 60. Should take about 25 minutes to get over there. The conditions for this mission, we're looking at low visibility with fog, mist, rain, very challenging conditions to say the least. Normally, we wouldn't fly in this, but when it comes to saving a life, for instance, this mission right here, this is why we do it.
ETA 25 minutes, guys. Roger, 25 minutes. Winds are almost 40 knots, guys. Hold on. Roger.
Lieutenant Commander Tom Combs. I'm a pilot at Air Station Kodiak. Anytime you have to fly in a Alaska storm, it's a big deal. We certainly have set ourselves up for success here in Kodiak, but it's still not something that we want to take with a grain of salt.
Sector 06, request to know if we know the patient is ambulatory. Are they able to walk?
006, patient is not ambulatory. Over.
So we're gonna have to start getting the litter ready.
AST-1, Rashid Arnick. I'm one of the rescue swimmers at Kodiak. About 8 minutes out from getting on scene, we found out that the patient was not ambulatory. She wasn't walking around. So we needed to unfold our litter. As we got closer, I heard it was a seizure. So my mindset changed to deal with that.
That's gonna be the bay up into the right. Pick your way through however you want. There's a guy waving. There they are. Get on the right side. Right here. Roger. Okay. Mark. Okay. There's a dirt spot right in front of them. You see it? Yeah, I see the four-wheelers there. Yeah. Ready for approach?
It was a relatively confined area, so we set up our approach downwind and made a smooth landing into the confined area.
Tail is clear of the trees.
Roger. Clear in the left.
Easy down. Easy down. Tail's on deck. Left main's on deck. Right main's on deck.
My name's Nick Davenport. I'm an AMT-2 at Air Station Kodiak. We got down on the ground and the swimmer and I grabbed the litter. Climbed out of the helicopter and climbed a little hill, probably a quarter mile. Got on scene with the Medevac patient and she wasn't looking too good.
We ended up getting her to the litter, no problem, strapping her in. On the way back to the helicopter, carrying her back in the field, it was kind of a downward grade. It was pretty bumpy, very wet, so we had to make our way carefully back to the helicopter. She didn't speak English, and the husband wanted to go along, basically to be with his wife, but also to help us with anything we might need to translate. I talked to the pilots real quick. They said it was not a problem if we had space.
For the husband insists to go. It'll be tight. You can probably get him in, but it'll be tight.
I'm okay with it.
That's not unusual for a loved one or a spouse to want to come with a patient, and we try to accommodate whenever possible. So I had no problem with it, gave the okay, and they came on board.
Sector Anchorage, Coast Guard Rescue 6006, airborne and en route to Kodiak.
How's she doing?
She's just having some seizure activity right now. Her pulse is weak but rapid. I can't get a good count with the helicopter, but I can definitely feel it's there. Roger. 30 minutes.
It was about a half-hour transit back home, and she was having seizures about every 10 minutes or so.
Her respiratory rate's going all over the place, and her pulse rate's going all over the place. Respiratory rate is 19, and the heart rate's off the chart right now. Anytime she seizures, I lose respiratory and heart rate.
A couple times in the aircraft, she ended up having seizures and stopped breathing for about 3 to 4 seconds. Each time she started breathing again, so it was a relief. It was a pretty stressful flight the entire time. The look of fear on her face when she was having the seizure is definitely going to stick in my mind.
She's still conscious, but she's just aging her now. Roger. Almost there. You want to take her out before we shut down, or wait to shut down? I think we should get her out as soon as possible. Yeah, I'd like to do that. I agree. Ready for approach.
Ready for approach.
Once the ambulance got a lot closer, opened the door, they came in, grabbed her, picked her up, and then I passed all my information, and they took it from there and brought her to the hospital. Hey, thanks a lot, by the way.
No worries. Nice work.
Good job in the back. I thought it was good. It went smooth. It couldn't go any better with the weather and everything we had. I think it went great.
Due to the location and the remoteness of the village, even though it was close to Kodiak, there were no services there. This definitely would have been for the worse had we not been there. It was a good case. Felt good to actually help someone that you knew needed it.
The 6038 is en route. It's a 68-year-old male with congestive heart failure.
You guys ready in the back? Ready as we can be.
The patient is suffering respiratory distress. He must be ventilated and oxygenated in order to survive.
Go! First throw of the game. Games are underway. Cue Scottish weather.
My name's James Gibson. I'm a lieutenant in the U.S. Coast Guard in Air Station Sitka.
Nice, nice, nice.
We're doing a Scottish Highland Games this year. Been kind of one of my hobbies for about the last 4 years. Figured if I could, I'd try to start one in Sitka.
29.
This is the first year we've tried it. Quite a few people came out. Everybody here, besides me, is pretty much a novice, so hopefully it all goes well.
Nice. 56.
I'm Lieutenant Mike Snyder. I'm a pilot at Air Station Sitka. You know, we're just kind of joking about who was going to scream the loudest on the throws. There was a ton of people there. The crowd was really getting into it. It was really electric.
Caber Toss is the premier Scottish event. It's a tree trunk, 20-foot long, 110, 120 pounds. And you'll have to pick it off the ground, run with it. And the goal is to try to flip the caber end over end so it lands at a 12 o'clock position. With the caber, it's very technical and very hard to do for first-timers.
The caber was by far the most challenging event. The crowd is getting more and more frenzied. They want to see somebody flip the caber over. We get 3 tries to pick it up. The first 2 tries, I failed miserably. One of the great things about living in Sitka is it's a really small, tight-knit community. The Coast Guard is really beloved here, and for the first time they've ever done the Highland Games, it was a lot of fun.
Ready for takeoff. Ready for takeoff.
Coast Guard, Rescue 38, channel 2 in the clear, over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sitka Air Rescue 38, be advised we are airborne for Skyway for Medevac with 6 POV, and we'll be establishing our radio guard with Coast Guard Sector 0. All copy, over.
38 Sitka Air, that's a good copy. Sitka Air out. SK3, John Foster. Currently, the 6038 is en route to Skagway. It's a Medevac. It's a 68-year-old male with congestive heart failure. Plan is to get there, load him up, and bring him to Juneau.
Rescue 38, this is Sector Juneau. Go ahead. Sector Juneau is requesting to take our radar guard at this time. Over.
Originally, they had told us that the EMS there in Skagway was going to have to join the patient in the helicopter on the flight back to Juneau. But they figured it was a better idea to have the flight surgeon in the helicopter with the patient. So.
If he's on a ventilator right now, we'll see if we can just keep him on.
I'm Captain Thomas White, flight surgeon at Air Station Sitka. The patient is suffering respiratory distress, reportedly in congestive heart failure, and needed a higher level of medical care expeditiously.
Medicines that we might need would be morphine and nitroglycerin. Okay. Morphine would be good for congestive heart failure and sedation.
So I'm trying to gain as much information as I can from the controller and from people on the ground who are with the patient. Is he stable? Is he critical? Is he potentially unstable? And what does he need and where does he need to go to get that ultimately?
Oh, no one else is flying right now. crazy if they are. This is going to be bumpy.
My name is Lieutenant James Gibson, pilot here at Air Station Sitka. We're kind of dealing with some really bad weather. A lot of high winds, in excess of 40 knots in a lot of areas, and poor visibility all the way from Sitka.
Got 30 knots of wind coming in from offshore.
I flew in a bad weather air station prior to coming to Alaska, but I didn't fly inland at night between terrain the way we do here in Southeast Alaska.
Got the runway in sight. Searchlight crew for ready for approach. Ready for approach.
So we got to the airport and entered the airport pattern to shoot the approach to the runway, and I could see the ambulance moving across the taxiway.
I don't know if he's going to be intubated or not. If he is, I anticipate we would just bag him until we get to Juneau. Very clear. Sweet. You guys ready in the back? Ready as we can be. Ready for approach. And for the switch time?
When I exit the helicopter, I have a rescue swimmer named Rob Simpson that's working with me, and he is looking at what kind of equipment do we need. Do we need oxygen? Do we need the monitor? I know he's on those things. So while he is doing that, I climb in, start talking to the provider who is currently taking care for the patient. And I see that he is in fact intubated, having to have his respirations assisted, and is also sedated as well. But I'm a little bit concerned that his oxygen level is on the borderline, and so I say to myself that he is stable right now, but he certainly doesn't have any room for deterioration at this point.
All right, here we go. Here comes the ground.
So the transition comes into the helicopter where the ground crew is no longer involved in his care directly, and it's all on us in the helicopter at that point. I want to make sure that the endotracheal tube appears to be placed properly, that we're not missing any major diagnoses that's going to affect his care in transit.
Crew, ready for takeoff? I don't know. They're working on it right now, sir. Wow, the tube actually sheared off.
At some point during the transition, the endotracheal tube had somehow failed. There was a crimp in it and it sheared off. And in 22 years of practice, I have never seen this happen. At that point, we had a patient who is not breathing because he is sedated. He has a tube coming out of his mouth, and he is sure to die if nothing happens.
Crew, ready for takeoff? They're working on it right now, sir.
We are responding to a patient in respiratory distress. We are told that he may have some congestive heart failure and that he is critically ill.
Wow, the tube actually sheared off.
At some point during the transition, the endotracheal tube had somehow failed. There was a crimp in it and it sheared off. And we both realized that the patient absolutely must be ventilated and oxygenated in order to survive. And Rob, he ventilates the patient's endotracheal tube with his mouth because that's what had to be done. My big concern is that although the patient's getting ventilated, the human body only breathes out 15% oxygen. And that's not going to be enough to sustain this gentleman for the long haul. And we need to get a better airway into him quickly. So I prepare to re-intubate the patient.
How are we doing, Doc? All right, yeah, ready to go. Let's go, sir. All right. Trucks are removed. Man, I tell you, wow. I think we got it stabilized. I did not expect that their endotracheal tube to break. Oh, is that what happened? Yeah, and we had to re-intubate him.
Well, my concerns are we've just placed another advanced airway, and I want to make sure that that doesn't fail. So I want to make sure that he is adequately at rest, so he's not going to fight the tube that's already in place.
It seems to be fighting the intubation a little bit, Doc.
A little bit.
We're going to have to narc him again.
Yeah, I gave him 10 of morphine just for, I think that's a good idea.
Morphine sulfate is sometimes used for congestive heart failure, and it has the side effect of helping him to feel more sedated and not fight the tube as much. So we did administer some morphine in flight. It did make a difference.
Got the runway in sight. Our wind's pretty much died off. Yeah.
I have all the confidence in the world in the rescue swimmers that I work with. Rob is a true guardian, and he acts to help others, I believe, in a heroic way, out of just pure instinct. We had a failed endotracheal tube, which occurred at just about the worst possible time because the helicopter is taking off. And we both realized that it was very important for him to get to a higher level of care, and that's exactly what he did. He made it happen.
My name is Max Gay. I live in Delton, Michigan. We was on a trip to Alaska. We'd done the total land cruise and we got down to Skagway and I developed pneumonia. The last thing I remember was being in front of the med center in Skagway. In my case, it was definitely between life and death. In that moment, you think, I got my wife here. We're 3,000 miles from home. I can't do this to her. I cannot leave her like this. Luckily for me, the people in Skagway, the Coast Guard, saved my life. You can't give them enough thanks. They're warriors of the sky, I guess is what you'd call them. And they do a tremendous job, fine job.